Hi. Hi, Kayla.
Hi, Marcia.
My name is Marcia Eckert. I'm on the board of Autism Today, and I am thrilled and excited and honored to be introducing Kayla Allen-Omeiza. She is a Black autistic author and advocate. She's dedicated her career to shedding light on the intersection of race, culture, and neurodiversity. She has written several amazing books, but I'm going to mention one of them right at the moment, and I'm going to read the title because, Kayla, you made an absolutely powerful title that I do not want to mess up. It's Autistic and Black, Our Experience of Growth, Progress, and Empowerment. Wow, that's strong. And she's exploring the unique challenges and triumphs faced by Black autistic individuals. So, hi, Kayla, welcome.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. I'm happy to be here.
How did you, I mean, it sounds weird to say discover autism, but how did you kind of run across the idea of autism and have thoughts about possibly being autistic?
Sure. So I actually, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 24 years old. I studied it for years before that, and through schooling and through research labs as well. Of course, the issue with in academia when studying autism or psychology in general was that when we were looking at case studies, we would usually look at it in, especially in the undergrad level, the graduate school level. It was in the master's level. It was usually high level. So we were looking at maybe one or two case studies, and they were mostly on about like 5-6-year-old boys, basically. So of course I never really saw myself as as autistic at all. I would just study it and just to study it, pass the test, and move on to the next condition we're studying, basically. And it didn't, even when I was working in research settings at Harvard Medical School, for example, when I was an intern, we were doing a research lab we're doing the research study with EEG, so EEG specifically with teens. With young adults, autistic young adults, and they were looking for a few more control samples. So I was extremely ambitious temporary intern at the time. I was like, oh, I'll do it as a control sample. So I really didn't cross my mind until a couple of years later, where there has been a lot more awareness going on about autism in adults in general, and I still didn't. It didn't click to me about like the processing, the at least my issues with the social situations. Basically, it was mainly what I saw was that the sensory sensitivities. I saw a blog post about a woman who didn't like wearing tight clothes. I'm like, oh, I don't either. I'm wearing a dress right now. I haven't worn jeans in about 10 years, for example, and I was like, oh, I don't like jeans. I don't like to wear leggings. I don't like to wear tights, and I remember I was seeing a therapist at the time for social situations. I had a big falling out with a friend group with a huge misunderstanding, and it was just and which related to autism, but we didn't know at the time. And I told her what I found about the blog post about me not fitting into not wanting to wear jeans, basically. And she's like, okay. I mean, she's like, I don't think you're autistic, but I mean, okay, I'll refer you. And when I got referred, she sat me down and just showed me like how I just was on all these different scales, all the different scenarios that I was completely autistic. and so that's how I was diagnosed. I knew about the condition before, but I didn't understand how it could apply to me, mainly because I didn't see adults, much less women, much less Black women, that were autistic in anything really, in any media. And that's what I decided to pivot from academia, actually, to write more narrative form and fiction and nonfiction to better raise awareness about how the different ways autism could look like, basically.
Yeah, I think your experience is common to most autistic women.
Sure.
In that the first thing they get told is, no, you don't look autistic because you're smiling or you're talking, you talk to me or something like that. So running into people saying, well, you don't look autistic, as if we, people all have an A on their heads or something. And did you get a chance to see any studies or anything of somebody who was Black and autistic?
No, not prior to. Definitely not prior to being diagnosed, no.
Yeah, so I mean, how did you wrap your mind, you know what I mean, around this notion that, hey, I don't see anybody, but my experience is I'm Black and I'm autistic. I mean, how did you sort of integrate that?
For myself, it made sense for me internally. I think I think my issue with it was when I tried to almost try to convince somebody else that I was autistic. I would be like, no, you're not, basically. And so when I understood my results, the person who assessed me was a 2-day, I think it was like 5 hours each day assessment, and she kind of sat down with me and told me like how I scored below average or at average on like all these on different tests, and how that related to in the autism spectrum disorder as well. When I saw it, I just saw how much I needed help with, especially with my processing speed, with processing. And I was a lot, and I knew I was been alive for 24 years at the time, of course, so I knew that I really struggled with these kind of components, and I needed and it really to me it was a good source of clarity, and I was a lot more compassionate with myself afterwards, after knowing. I'm like, okay, this is why I'm struggling with this. It's not because I'm just not working hard as everybody else, because I actually do need to put an extra effort. I'm not doing anything wrong. This is just what my brain's needs a little bit extra effort. And if I need to get to the next, if I need to pass this test, basically, or something, for example. And it gave me more of the courage to focus on my strengths instead of my weaknesses too. So of course, like once I worked like 20, 30 times harder than other like neurotypical individuals to pass the test or whatever, I realized that, okay, maybe I don't want to keep doing tests basically for the rest of my life or something like that. And I wanted to work on my strength. I knew I had my special interest was creative writing, was just writing in general. And I think it made sense to explore that more instead of just trying to always go against the grain. But I think I was really, I think just I think I realized that like just society in general was confused about how somebody who looked like me had the background I had, I guess, with my work experience, my school experience, and me being an elite athlete when I was younger too. I think it was going against like the stereotypes of autism, basically, and I think that's what I struggled with when trying to tell anybody from a next door neighbor to a doctor that I was autistic.
An articulate young Black woman at Harvard is not people's typical notion of what. Like, I want to get to your writing in a second, but I'm just curious. It was so, in a sense, you embraced your uniqueness. You embraced understanding yourself and having compassion for yourself. What was the response of the autistic and Black communities to you, given that your intersectionality at that time was so unusual and not known?
So what was the response to those that were also autistic and Black?
Yeah, in other words, when you were talking to people who were in the Black community and you said, I'm autistic, did they say, oh, cool? Or do they no, Black people aren't autistic?
Sure. When I said I was autistic, there's been a little bit more of awareness about the general understanding of autism in my community in general, in the Black community. But especially, I would say even about a few years ago, when I said, people were like, what's that? or they only knew it as as individuals, for example, who are not speaking, for example. So they only have like one like part of the spectrum in their brains, basically, and about what that can mean. So for me, for them, it was just white or black. Like, no, you're not. I mean, because you're talking to me right now, so no, you're not autistic. Basically, over the past, and that that was before I lived in England for 5 years, and so that's why I'm thinking of in 2019 in the United States, Black American United States in 2019 versus Black American United States now, since I've been back, and the people I relate with now, I think there's been more understanding of the like, so for lack of a better word, the spectrum of autism, and that people are in the Black community, people here that you could be speaking, that are autistic. I think the issue I've had in the Black community has been with people not knowing I'm autistic, so just acting off in general. People might think I've gotten called like bougie, or like just like I'm trying to be something I'm not, basically. And when I'm relating to other Black individuals, because of my autistic mannerisms, basically, and it's usually out of ignorance that they don't know I'm autistic usually.
Right. So you wanted to express yourself. You wanted to share what you had learned and your own experience. And as you said, your background was in writing, so you had this incredibly powerful tool. Your first work was fiction, though, artistic. And so why did you choose first to write fiction?
Sure. So I chose to write fiction because I thought it would be most relatable, and I thought it would be the most engaging for that demographic, for a teenager, for young adults. I thought I taught children's church in my church when I wrote the book in 2022, or 2021 when I wrote it, and an overwhelming amount of the children read novels are fun, not nonfiction books. And I realized that that was, if I wanted children to read and enjoy the book, it needed to be fiction at the time. So and I also had a lot of fun writing novels. I always wanted to write a book in general. I decided that I wanted that novel would be the best start for me. And it was a really fun process to kind of use all this knowledge I had about like just the kind of research behind autism, and kind of put it in like a really kid-friendly story, and a teen girl's life. And my first draft, I wrote it as if it was me, and then I decided to make I ended up taking most of those chapters out, actually, in my second drafts and going forward, because I realized that I didn't want to insert myself in it too much. I wanted to write it as if it was, for example, like if I had a teen daughter, and so somebody who I knew and loved and wanted the best for, and they wanted to like see them go through challenges and triumphs without. And it was a way for me to actually get an inner voice out better, to be more a diplomatic inner voice.
Yeah, that's and especially bringing this message to young adults, or I would imagine also older teens, but because that's really where you had been coming from when you were going through this discovery. Yeah. So then you chose to write Autistic and Black, which is definitely nonfiction and is sharing the real life stories of people. Can you tell us about how you decided that you were going to write this book, and how you got these stories, and just tell us about it? It's a fascinating book, wonderful read if anybody hasn't read it.
Sure, thank you. So I wrote Autistic and Black primarily for the everyday reader to feel seen or learn something about other cultures, basically. When I wrote the book, when I proposed the book, I think that's the word, I didn't want the book to center one story or one person, but I wanted to be like a collection of a vast array of like autistic people, and or those who cared for them. So I didn't only want it to be about Black autistic individuals, but for example, we have a white neurotypical mother who has 2 Black autistic sons, for example. We have parents who are in the book, and other caregivers too. But of course, the leading and overwhelming voices are Black autistic. And I really wanted to make sure other Black autistic individuals saw themselves or saw their family members in it. And I also wanted to make it more narrative and more engaging. The voicing. I didn't want it to sound too stuffy, too text-heavy. When I was working in academia, like a lot of my my dissertation, I got a lot of comments like yeah, this is too pop psych. This is way too pop right now. And I realized, I'm like, okay, fine, I'll just be a pop writer. There's no reason to try to make myself not a pop writer. And so that's why so I wanted to just kind of to own it basically, and write for people who wanted to read pop psych, wanted to read something that was engaging, not something that's supposed to be a textbook, but something that that's supposed to be engaging and supposed to read and learn about other people, learn about other cultures. And there's about 20 individuals from 7 different countries, all having different various accommodation needs. Some people I had to interview via email because there was one man who didn't like the phone frequency or in the cell phones or on our laptops. So we had to write through email. There's a couple non-speaking individuals who I spoke with them with the help from me, with the help of their speech therapist, with their letterboard. So of course they were speaking to me, but I since the screen was mirrored and I didn't have as much experience, the speech therapist was helping me understand. And and just talking with so many different people from like all different cultures, all different backgrounds across the world, 7 different countries. It was really nice to see how much we had in common, just about like our stories about belonging, about loneliness, about understanding ourselves. And it was just really nice to see that kind of theme play out just consistently across all of our stories, and even how it came out in the book too. It was really nice. Sometimes I was in tears when I was writing, when I was writing, especially the second or third iteration of the book. And I was just really happy for individuals that were able to have this kind of resources, because I definitely needed this kind of resource when I was, especially around like 2017 when I had a falling out with my friend group. It was nice to see other people that looked like me have missing neurotype have the same situation.
I'm just curious, how did you find people, from around the world who, to talk to?
Sure, it was challenging, but I'm really proud of myself that if I kept at it really aggressively, trying to make sure I was happy with the representation. When I proposed the book, it seemed like just publishing in general, and the publishers were happy enough. It was just like, if I just wrote everybody were from the US, maybe like 3 of us were from the UK. Basically, I think they would have been just fine. But I was really strict about like, no, it doesn't even matter if it needs to take like 2 more months to find other people. I need to make sure people are not people who are currently living in the global south, particularly living in the African continent too. That was really important to me, that those experiences are talked about, and not just individuals that immigrated to the US, like they're in the US or in the UK currently, a lot of people that are still living in the continent of Africa in general. And that proved really difficult, honestly, to try in the first, because of course my first, and I'm sure as most people who've written books before or or tried to find participants for a research study, the first thing you would do is go to social media, post when maybe your alumni group and your universities, just kind of poke signs in front of in places. That primarily attracted people who were just like me, basically, who were Black autistic individuals, and they were also middle class Americans, basically, which was, it was a great start. But I had to really dig deep and find what the relevant hashtags people were using. So I searched with a lot of hashtags, especially on Twitter and Instagram, and just mass DM'd a lot of people that looked like they were in different environments outside of the U.S. Even other people that were also still in the U.S. too. And after that, I still realized that after I maybe got like one person from South Africa at that time, and I wanted to make sure they were like all, like there was different corners of the continent represented. So I reached out to different societies as well. So I reached out to, for example, the Autism Society of Namibia, the Autism Society of South Africa. I learned and I got connected with so many different organizations that I otherwise wouldn't have come across, and I'm still in contact with them with this day. Like, for example, the Autistic in Africa organization on Twitter, and they introduced me to a lot of people that the organizers are really happy to introduce me to people that people are families, parents, therapists who work with individuals who are really happy to would be happy to take part in a project like this. So that was the final step that was able to get us to kind of get me to the cap where I wanted, where I was happy to start interviewing, basically, to start interviewing and to then place individuals into themes after that.
Well, a couple of things strike me from what you just said. One is how important it is that you did all that work, because the bottom line is how much we all have in common.
Right.
That it didn't matter kind of exactly where you came from or what culture you were in, you were having similar experiences, and you could kind of relate to each other around those experiences. And the other thing is that, I mean, this is a global conference, as you know, and I don't know that even in America, people who are autistic are aware of how to be part of the autistic community. And certainly I would imagine that's not true globally. There might be people who did like you and figured out they were autistic because of what they read or what they saw, but they didn't know there was anyone like them anywhere near them. And so I think that finding those societies, finding those voices is so critical to the idea that there can be a community that comes together and supports each other.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. I'm just actually thinking about a woman I interviewed who's in the book, and the chapter titled Transition for Autism. She wrote, she was discussing with me about how she didn't know autism at all, but like not to the point where she of course didn't know it in English, but then she also didn't know it in her language too, in Swahili either. So it took until she took her son to a doctor from India, actually, to tell her the Swahili word for autistic, Usanji, and she was been doing a lot of awareness just to make sure people understood what that condition even was, basically. So there's a lot of there are pockets in the world where people don't know on autism. Like there's not as much awareness, let alone acceptance of it. So even if there were awareness, there's a lot of another individual I interviewed just for as more of an expert commentary. I was part at Oxford. She was just a psychiatrist in Nigeria, and she was telling me how few psychiatrists there are in Nigeria, and autism isn't really a condition that's known or understood among like the average Nigerian, she was telling me. And when it is known, those individuals are usually in shelters or homeless because no one really knows how to take care of them, basically, or help people take care empower people to take care of themselves as well. So it was definitely. I'm happy that I was able to. We were able to get all these stories shared for all of us to learn more about each other. But then also we could understand, like for example, like we were saying, how a lot of our internal struggles about feeling isolated, feeling lonely, how empowering it was to see like how much we all need each other, how much we all have in common, and the power of community.
Right. And that brings me to the next thing, because you're not only an advocate and a writer, you have a hat of someone who started a nonprofit.
Yes.
And so you started I'm Heard. And I think that speaks so much to what you're talking about the need for global understanding. So could you tell us a bit about I'm Heard?
Yes, so I'm Heard is a nonprofit I started in 2018 with about 10 other individuals, and it's about, and it's 10 other board members, sorry, it's the focus is to end the stigma of mental illness in the United States and minority communities. So having a focus on minority communities, those communities where there might be an increased amount of stigma compared to the majority population. I started with different individuals in different minority groups in different parts of the United States, and we had a few initiatives back in 2018, and when I moved to England, I decided to when I moved to Nigeria and then in England, I decided that we need to make it a global focus, basically. So it became like across the minority groups across the world. So now it's I'm Heard.world. So we expanded to make it more global initiatives and make sure people are empowered to speak for to speak for themselves, and also other people have awareness about conditions to how to interact with people.
And did this include autism at that time?
Sure, it included neurodivergent conditions, but it was primarily about mental illness. So, so yes, so definitely expanded to neurodivergent.
But I think the whole idea of stigma and acceptance goes across the board.
Absolutely.
And as you said, different countries are in different places in terms of understanding it. That woman who didn't even know there was a word for autistic, and so I'm sure that. So how did you guys fight this stigma? I mean, how did you try to reach people?
Sure. So it's primarily through social media. We had, especially pre-COVID, we had a lot of social media engagement, social media outreaches. But outside of that, I think when I was in Nigeria, I collaborated with an organization called Mentally Aware Nigeria Initiative, and they were raising the first round of funding to start the first phase of the Nigeria's first toll-free suicide hotline,
Wow.
Yes, and, yeah. So it was really important initiative, and they were raising money for in Nigeria at the time. It was slow going and to raise it in Nigeria. We were having a hard time connecting with larger donors, or those that are more likely to donate money that would be larger. So I knew, of course, the dollar was stronger than the naira, the Nigerian naira. I told them I was aware of several Nigerian American groups in the U.S. So I thought I proposed an idea to make sure we connect with the Nigerians. So I made sure I was almost like an ambassador for the organization, and was able to help finish the funding for that first round of the toll-free suicide hotline. So that was probably one of my biggest achievements, especially pre-COVID, on behalf of I'm Heard, representing I'm Heard with the Nigerian NGO. And we also published my first novel, Autistic, through as well as create what was it called? A creativity contest where we invited youth worldwide to submit stories about what makes their unique traits worth highlighting and worth focusing on their strengths. And we had a mentorship schemes for them as well, and we were able to pick 3 winners across the world to continue mentoring them about their interests and their strengths.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that just covers such a wide gamut from what's so critical in terms of suicide prevention,
Yeah.
which is such a big issue in the autistic community, as I'm sure. And there's another talk that is, dealing with that, all the way to, hey, celebrate your strengths, celebrate your, know yourself and value yourself. And I would think that there are so many other countries that have yet to even start this process, right?
Sure. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. As far as, like, for example, in Nigeria, it's illegal to attempt suicide, for example. So and when I was collaborating with the NGO in Nigeria, there was scenarios where we were working with individuals who went to the hospital after an attempt, but they, instead of going to, and instead in the US or the UK, going to an inpatient psychiatric unit or at least outpatient, they had to go to jail, basically. So the criminalization of mental illness was a lot more apparent in some countries.
No, I mean that is such a foreign. I mean it's such a foreign idea in our culture, but
Sure.
yeah. So in addition to this incredible global outreach and writing that you're doing, and research, there's also that you coined the Hedonic Flywheel Effect, which is a fascinating name. And so you need to tell us what that means.
Oh, sure. So it's a concept. It's a concept that I coined, taking principles from psychology and business. It basically means that focusing on, just really extremely wrong, focusing on like your passions and your interests spirals into like it just like the way of compounding interest spirals into like unanticipated better relationships, better finding other interests and having better success in both of those throughout one's life by just like going with your strengths. I took it from the I'm sure you're familiar with the, like, for example, hedonic adaptation or the hedonic treadmill. So if somebody's just chasing happiness or they might they're chasing the next best thing. It might make them happy, like chasing, like, for example, a new car. It might make them happy for a short amount of time, but then they'll go back to baseline after that. And then also the principle, the flywheel principle from business. I learned it from when an investor, one of my startups, introduced the concept to us about how if by like really investing in words of like putting a lot of effort into like getting that one customer and being really engaging with that one customer, how it keeps spiraling into other customers, and to the point where you could just keep like, yeah, it starts spinning itself as a flywheel basically and expands after that. And I decided to use the concepts of, and just from my experience in both psychology and business throughout my life, throughout my startup career as well, how that is utilized, and especially in neurodivergent individuals, by focusing on your strengths, your special interests, what makes you happy, what are you good at, and what you can contribute to make an impact in the world. How in my life and in almost every individual's life I interviewed in the Autistic and Black book, and as well as several mentees and others I coached in speaking engagements, that how when you focus on your interests, find other people that are interested in what you're doing and let that expand, it improves quality of life, it improves one's career, and it improves overall happiness in ways that you don't even anticipate.
Yeah, I think so many people, especially in the neurodivergent community, have people focus on their challenges for so long.
Exactly.
That focusing on their strengths may seem like a whole new, that people may not even be in touch with their strengths.
Yes, true. Yeah, that is.
And so, clearly your strengths in both being articulate and a writer and the whole world that you've found of sort of reaching out and accomplishing all this is just is just, amazing. Tell me, you mentioned startups. Are there more startups that I don't even know about?
Oh, well, for example, my startup in at University of Oxford, I was working at a startup with autonomous vehicles, and I started with about 4 other individuals. But I think I was talking about, well, I was referencing the one I was in, South Park Commons Founder Fellowship, where we developed a platform basically to make lending fair for those borrowing, and specifically in the continent of Africa. We're specifically looking at Nigeria and Kenya. So I lived in Kenya for 6 weeks when to scale that up and get ourselves ready for the launch with that one. And that's when I had that major investor who was the first female engineer at Facebook, actually, and she was the one who introduced us to the concept of flywheel effect and how crucial it is for business and for companies.
And how did how did people use this platform?
Sure. So it was B2B. It's not super relevant to, well, it's not relevant to neurodiversity or intersectionality, but it was B2B about how so we made a platform so individuals could better and more fairly vet potential borrowers, those lending companies, micro lenders, because it was to the point where there was a I think it's a little dramatic for me to say crisis, but there was a situation and particularly in Nairobi and Lagos, where a lot of tech workers were going to new locations in Google and Microsoft in that city, and they were leaving lending companies like the ones that we were working with, and it was going. And what ended up happening was that the lending companies are getting more aggressive because they didn't have as much tech workers to help build their products, so they were getting a lot more aggressive and a lot with their borrowers, basically. So borrowers, like, they would start doing really aggressive, really almost cruel practices to people who were late. For example, mass sending text to like their family members, for example, saying that this person's a liar or an evil person, stuff like that. And so we developed a platform to help automate those systems so they would stop doing that, basically. And yeah, it's just make everything more fair for everybody.
I think you're kind of inspirational in that, as an example of going with what interests you and making it happen. Because with your books and your nonprofit and this platform and just all of these things, you get an idea and you take a deep dive. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I think the best example of my life in Hedonic Flywheel Effect is like how I got into Oxford and then also married my husband. Basically, I just by following my interest in just in mental health in general, allowed me to just snowball into environments that all led up to me having a good application. By going like, oh, I'm interested in learning more about other cultures and mental health, and applying to the Fulbright, for example. And then so now I started working in Nigeria. Like, oh, now I'm really interested in learning more about like just just how diverse we are as Black people, Black individuals, and like learning about the intersection in the Black community. And I'm writing a proposal for that for Oxford. When I got into Oxford, I started wanting to get more into utilizing technology for those kind of conditions too. So I actually started reaching out to the people that were part of the African community, but were also interested in tech, so that I can collaborate on projects with them. And my husband, for example, messaged me back. He was a Nigerian studying computer science, basically. So all of that just by following my interest. So my husband and I started collaborating on projects about mental health in Africa and utilizing technology. And that's the only reason I met him, because I was just following what I wanted to do. And I think, and I really attributed that to the hedonic flywheel effect. If I didn't, if I tried to only just focus on like what I needed to work on, basically, I don't think I wouldn't have the life that I have right now, basically. If by following what I was interested in and meeting different unique people from following those interests and being open to going to different environments, different places, different scenarios because of it, and trying new things that way. I think it's all really spiraled into unanticipated success. Like, for example, my marriage, like unanticipated things, like happiness things for me that I wouldn't have anticipated just by being interested in mental health, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think that whole idea of the treadmill of people keeping thinking that, you know, the next thing's going to work, the next thing's going to work, the next thing's going to work. A lot of people just sort of keep running that over and over and over in their heads, that, you know, instead of maybe looking at, well, what's going okay right now? What can I pursue right now?
Exactly. Yep. To go, what's my interest right now, and how can I make myself, how can I find out more about it? How can I, what kind of projects can I work on? Who can I meet to collaborate with? That's definitely the way to go.
Well, I definitely know the next book we need you to write, speaking personally anyway, is just sort of how you go about doing this.
Yeah.
You know, your ability to, you know, how you go about finding the connections, how you go about using social media, because I think a lot of people who might have an interest or an idea don't know what to do with it. And then they start going in on themselves and, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm stuck, I don't have anything, you know, I don't have anything to offer. And you're really an example of how you can take an idea and fly with it.
Exactly. And I'm actually writing a proposal for a nonfiction book actually about it. But I'm always happy to talk with individuals about just starting with just anything. For example, like, you know, if I were to keep just going back, it all started with me wanting to knowing I liked to read. I didn't think I was a fast reader. I didn't read. I didn't, like, if I had to read, like, write an essay or take a test about it, I wouldn't do as well as other people, but I liked reading about stories, basically. I like reading. And me just joining, and instead of focusing on like, oh, well, like maybe I won't read as fast as everybody else, I just joined a book club, basically. And just, I think going back even to just that, I just joined one book club, found like the genre I was interested in, joined another book club about that genre specifically, asked those people like, what, because I was like, okay, these people are really neat because they're into books, like what else do they do? Like, then maybe I might like it too. So like, what else are you guys doing on Saturday besides reading, going to book club? And they would they would let me know, and yeah, that's where I learned more about. Yeah, that's honestly where I started learning more about like nonprofit stuff and all of that. Sometimes just by picking anything really, and not worrying about any and limitations that are irrelevant. For example, like the speed of me reading wasn't super relevant to me just joining a book club. Even if I didn't finish the book, I still showed up and told them like I'm still halfway done. For example.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking all the way back to where we started, which is you in therapy because of, you know, feelings of social issues and social awkwardness and all that. And then we're hearing you're like all over the place, you know, joining clubs and being part of this and reaching out to these people and reaching out there. And I think that, you know, it seems to me that one of the keys is getting past that anxiety about the awkwardness and getting into the interest.
Exactly. Absolutely. And not letting a harmful scenario stop you, basically. So for example, like if I struggled with a friend group, it didn't mean that I would struggle in a book club, for example. I think it took therapy for me to fully grasp and to fully understand, and have that confidence to take the leap for myself. But by focusing more on my interest instead of just joining like any group, was the way that gave me more confidence and assurance that I somebody that was, yeah, worthy of friendship or just like acquaintanceship.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a point I really, want people to get from what you're saying, which is that when the focus is on not you particularly, but ourselves and on, our worries, our limitations, our anxiety, what my limitations are in terms of being able to be comfortable, engage in the kind of communication that people have in small talk before they get into things. And that if you're in a role like you're a researcher or you're presenting a book or you're presenting it, and you're being an advocate and you're presenting your ideas about mental health, or if you're in a club of something that really interests you, you're kind of into that. You're not into you.
Yes, exactly.
Would you say that's right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, that was exactly what I meant. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's definitely my main point about like following like your special interests. Yeah, basically, it was definitely. Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Right, and that takes us out of all the limitations, some of which are self-imposed.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, this has just been incredibly inspirational. I'll say that for myself in terms of you're so young relative to me, and that you just do so many things and just have fearlessly seem to just sort of, head out into exploration and
Sure.
and how you do that. And I'm hoping the next book gives us all more of an idea of how do you do that.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about my book to talk about it more further in my book too. But yeah, it definitely, I think it goes back to me being like a 400 runner in track and everything, just like about having to just the kind of courage to kind of dig even if you're behind, basically. Like for example, like write a book and publish a book with when you have 100 social media followers, basically, versus waiting till you have 10,000, basically. I think just having just following my interest in writing instead of in content creation, and hoping that like the story would, like, of course you need branding, you need marketing and stuff, but hoping the story would speak for itself once you get like true readers, basically true readers or advocates. I think all of that, as you were saying, is it's definitely stuff I was going to talk about in the book, and obviously add more research elements and anecdotes from other individuals too.
And you're an advocate and a speaker as well.
Yes.
Tell us a little about that one.
Sure. Well, I exactly just doing things like this. So basically talking about my passion, talking about my interests, talking about why I got started with writing, how it's helped me as an a Black autistic woman, how following my interest in writing has helped my life, has helped, my career, my just like everything about my social life, honestly, and in my relationships, and that's why I like to talk about like with my advocacy, with specifically like championing like the hedonic flywheel effect and making sure that we all like are empowered to follow our special interests. If it seems like we're obsessed about something, like so what to go with it instead of like wanting to, if someone's trying to make you write a certain way when for example in academia I was getting a lot of pushback for being sounding pop, basically, instead of trying to just but also knowing that like at the same time when I was posting blogs that people liked the blogs, basically, so I knew that there wasn't anything wrong with like the way I was writing, it was just the wrong environment, basically. So having the courage to have those environments too.
So it's it's not me that's the problem, it's the people responding to me and having that faith in yourself, which is a big leap,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You've mentioned the viral effect a couple times, and I want to make sure people, including me, know what that means.
Oh, sure. So the flywheel is the business principle about, so for example, acquiring that first customer and being engaging with that first customer. It leads to other customers, other revenue, to get more advertising and marketing, to get more customers. And it starts like working for itself. and it starts like, yeah, it makes it so that like now you can get 10, now you can get 100, now you can get 10,000, basically after that, without putting in as much effort as you did at first to get that first one. And it's similar. It's similar, for example, like in other businesses too, like for example, even in writing, like just getting that first true fan reader, a reader who like really likes your book, like your writing, and how they're able to tell others about you. And also it also helps. It's also true in our personal lives too. That's why I applied it to the hedonic flywheel, like the hedonic flywheel effect specifically, about how like applying but pursuing your interests, and makes it so that like your quality of life just starts spiraling, trending up, and it even gets to the point where you even have to even put like less effort into it, like as you did before, like trying to take that leap to do that first thing. It starts like starting to spiral itself after a while.
Yeah, and then it kind of has to be authentically you.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. You leap into your interest and allow yourself to iterate from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just inspirational how much you've accomplished. I know I keep saying that, but I keep, thinking that how much you've done. I wondered if there's any questions that other people have. I know I do, but I'm just wanting to give people a chance to, if there are any questions. And I'm not sure how we find out, but I think
I'm not sure either, actually.
Yeah. Well, just one last one, which is you mentioned that you met your husband when you were first doing this research, which in your journey is a ways back. Has he also been doing as much? Is he kind of there with you? And how one of the fascinating things is how couples navigate this sort of thing. And so what's that been like for you?
He's on a completely different career, basically. So he's in tech, basically, with AI. Our as you can imagine, our interests intersect at points. For example, when he's looking at AI, and if he's when he was a PhD student, for example, if he's reading a paper about how it could be used in cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, we'll talk about it basically, and we'll support each other about it. And if he tells me about it, I'll get super excited to talk about my opinion about what I think about it, and same with me, actually, to the point where when I wrote my fiction book, Autistic, the girl's special interest was actually in technology. And at first I was consulting with my husband about like, oh, what do you think? But then I realized that he was, everything he knows is like obviously super not what like a high school girl would know. So I enrolled in a Harvard X intro to computer science class, actually, to just learn more about AI, to get in the same mindset of what that main character would be. But I think just like that mutual support we've had, it's been helpful for us to not be in the exact same field. Like I'm not also a research scientist in AI, and he's also not. Yeah, he's not an autism advocate, basically. But it's been nice to kind of go in and out and be interested in what each other are doing, even if it's completely outside of our interest, or outside of our what's it called? Our I guess our strength. I guess like I'm definitely.
Yeah. And you have kids as well?
Yes, we have a 14-month-old boy.
Oh my gosh.
May or may not hear him in the background every once in a while.
Yeah, hi, I think we have a question. Hi, Erica.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I've enjoyed everything that you said, Kayla, if that's okay for me to call you by your first name. It's been amazing. I have 2 children on the spectrum. One is 10 and the other will be 14 in November. And my daughter, a lot of what I'm hearing you say reminds me so much of what she's going through at the age of 14. And I'm curious to know, with everything that you know and what you've accomplished, how, let's see, if you had a child like mine, 14, going through a similar story as yours, how would you encourage her to kind of get through those social, issues? And she does have much trouble making friends, but is very smart, very accomplished, is a great artist, but she desperately, wants people to accept her. And so she will try to mimic others to try to get them to accept her through mimicking instead of being herself.
Yeah, that's an amazing question. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that was a good question. That's exactly why I wrote my the fiction book Noah as somebody who I imagine being my teenage daughter, actually. So I would definitely encourage you to read the book. Definitely feel free to email me. I'm happy to. I always like sharing my book with autistic individuals, and but I would definitely say I'm trying to say I'm relating to the fact that because when I was a teenager, I wanted to fit in at that time. Right now, I did not care about other individuals saying like, oh, it's going to get better later and stuff. I didn't really believe them at the time. I just thought, this is my situation now. I need to do what I have to do to be likable, which was an attempt, as you were saying, your daughter does, this attempt to mimic, and for me it completely fails. Everyone saw it. But I would definitely say to, for example, with seasoned artists, to get more involved in that, and to really focus on trying to connect with other artists in her area, and trying to relate, and trying to start off with just conversation just about art, basically, in general, or to be more focused on like having like a unique perspective of that interest in like a way to help other individuals in art, and letting that flow with relationships. Sometimes when I was a teenager, that small talk preference, just like that, being able to chat about art, about things like slightly adjacent to art, like for example having that unique spin in art, for example, in the painting, having a unique spin with like for example like an Afro inspired spin helps, and talking more about that is something that you can contribute to. It helped me. It helped other people I talked to on the Autistic and Black book too. Helps to get to like talking about, for example, something like might be more scary, or like sports, for example, with somebody.
Yeah.
Already having like that kind of chit chat focus was able to help me get to that next part. To help me get more courage to speak out in social, to raise my hand in social studies, for example, and to form friendships that way. So I would definitely encourage her to focus on those that are already interested in what she's interested in.
Right. Yeah, and I want to just refer back to your book Afrotistic, because that's exactly this is who you wrote it for, right?
Yes. Well, yeah.
Teenage girl who's trying to find herself, and you're sharing your experience. I'd like to thank you so much. I echo Erica in that this talk has been inspirational, both, and I hope that other parents, hear this, and will hear this throughout the conference. And I think there's probably contact information for everyone. I'm sure you don't want to be deluged with emails, but just, your ideas are so powerful. So thank you so much, Kayla, for being with us.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely welcome. We're really happy to be here. Definitely feel free to reach out. My email is kayla@Allen-Omeiza.com, but it's probably easier just to go on, just to like find my website. Just like any social media, like you just kind of Google my name, and then like some social media profile will have a link to my website, and it would be there on the contact form, and you can just contact there. But yeah, definitely, talking about that last point too. The main character Noah did socialization way better than I ever did when I was a teenager. He's done some things better than I did now, and I think that's the way she focused on is probably the best blueprint for teenagers now, honestly. And I would definitely definitely recommend that. I'm actually I'm really excited to talk more about that with anybody who wants to as well.
Okay, well, thanks so much. I think we're out of time. So everyone, this has been an incredible, inspirational race. So